They've had to deal with the loss of their daughter. They have a lot of trauma. And yet this person who committed this act, 55 days in jail, and basically he's out and can move on with his life. And he's got court-provided counseling because it's too traumatic for him. But what about the daughter's parents?
This one right here in front of you with all those containers is zoned to be 2 containers high. Tell me where you see 2 containers.
David Menzies for Rebel News here in Caledon, Ontario, and I'm with concerned citizens Franca Pisani and Amanda Corbett. They are with a group called the Caledon Community Road Safety Advocacy Group. And when it comes to the trucking business in Caledon, there is much to be concerned about. Here's just a short list of some of the grievances. Unsafe trucks and poorly trained truckers, a growing underground economy that is breeding lawlessness on the roads, trucks that are illegally stored and not maintained properly, immigration fraud involving temporary foreign workers, and the rules, basically being violated at every level, from the rules of the road to the rules of environmental stewardship. And sadly, that is just the tip of the iceberg. It's quite incredible. You told me off camera this incredible volume of trucks we see behind us. We're at the intersection of Highway 50 and Mayfield. Not even 6 or 7 years ago did you see this. And now this is a fact of life. Franca, let's start with you. What is going on, and why aren't the authorities cracking down on this?
The authorities really, their hands are tied because the laws have not been changed, and they know that, and they took the loophole and ran with it. They're finally cracking down on the driving schools.
Okay.
And they've got something in place for the end of July that if they don't come up to par with everything and show their lesson plans and so forth, they're out. They're immediately cut off. And then you've got the unqualified drivers, because they've only done 2 or 3 days worth of schooling, and they're put in a truck. They don't know how to back up. They don't know how to make left-hand turn lanes. And a lot of distribution centers will tell you that they have retired truckers in there so that when the truck comes, they can back it up for them.
And indeed, Amanda, one of the reasons for the formation of your group a couple of years ago, there was this 23-year-old lady who was killed by a trucker. He went through a red light, a light that had been red for 10 seconds. I believe he was sentenced earlier this year. 55 days in the slammer and $1,000 fine. I mean, that's outrageous.
It is outrageous, and just think what the poor woman's family has to go through, right? Like they've had to deal with the loss of their daughter. They have a lot of trauma, and yet this person who committed this act, 55 days in jail, and basically he's out and can move on with his life. And he's got, court-provided counseling because it's too traumatic for him. But what about the daughter's parents and everything for their family? It's really outrageous.
Unbelievable. It's like deja vu regarding the Humboldt Broncos tragedy. And speaking of which, we can't dance around this. Many of these truckers, they're immigrants to Canada from India. And as you said, Franca, not qualified to drive an 18-wheeler and bigger. How do they get a license in the first place?
It is mostly South Asians, but there are other nationalities that they've actually started doing this with. They basically go to these countries and say, hey, come here and work, pay me, I'll do your LMIA papers. The other person says, I don't have the money. And then they come here and they're working for free. They bring them to certain schools, tell them to go to certain doctors. And we know this for a fact because one of our members actually tried, and they gave her the answers. They gave her doctors and everything. And they put him, a green and a red pedal, basically. And a few days and they're on the road.
This is astonishing. And it's not just ill-trained truckers and trucks that are poorly maintained, Amanda. I can see just behind us, they're stacked up, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 high containers. And you were telling me off camera, that yard, that shipping yard, it shouldn't be there. It's operating illegally. How is this possible?
So that yard was actually operating illegally up until about a month ago.
Okay.
It actually just got what we call zoned into compliance by the city of Vaughan. So essentially what happens in a lot of these cases is farmland is bought, paved over with fill from who knows where. Trucks get put on the land. It's not properly zoned for that. They operate for a few years. Eventually it gets taken to court. And maybe they will then submit a zoning application to basically approve what's already been done, as opposed to get the zoning approved first and then do the work.
So they do the zoning retroactively.
Basically, yeah. So that's what happened in that yard there.
So what's the reason to follow the rules if you're going to get compliance from the municipalities eventually?
And that is our major issue with this zoning into compliance situation. If there's no consequences for ignoring the zoning and you just do what you want and then get it approved anyway, then what's the point of having zoning in the first place?
I want to add something to that, and Amanda will back me up on this, is there was a yard down on Highway 50 that was basically zoned into compliance, and she did her research and she found a lot of contamination, runoff and everything.
Oh, I wanted to get to that point in terms of the environment. I was shocked to come across some stories where used motor oil, hydraulic fluid, other very toxic liquids are actually being dumped into bodies of water? I mean, where's the Ministry of the Environment?
That's a great question. So the Ministry of Environment will not come out and do any investigation unless you see it happening or you can smell it. So you have to actually be able to go on to the property to either see what's happening or smell what's happening. And a lot of these properties, there are not great things happening on them.
And so a lot of people here, I understand, they're getting their water, it's well water. So this is a big deal, contaminated water, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. And especially in the rural areas where everybody's on well water, septic systems, all of that kind of stuff. There are these illegal truck yards up there, and they are dumping stuff onto the land, into the water. And, where's the oversight and where's the Ministry of the Environment? Unless you see it, they won't come.
And Franca, you mentioned off camera that when they're being fined, and even substantial fines, it's not even a matter of the cost of doing business, but rather by the time it gets to court, and it could be years and years, the people operating these illegal yards and trucking companies, they're numbered companies. They just cease the company and then they start up anew as another company. Do I have that right?
It is correct. They're called phantom carriers. And from one day to another, whether they get into accidents or so forth, also the trucking, but even the yards, once they get into the courts and they know they're about to lose, they just change names and the whole process starts all over and the fines get thrown out the window.
And it should be mentioned that even though this yard is now legal, there in the area there are other illegal yards. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. So in the town of Caledon, just last week we had 80 open investigations for 80 for illegal truck yards just in Caledon alone. Right here, we're at the border of Vaughan and Brampton, and there's a lot more illegal yards in those locations as well.
And, tell me, it's really 3 big municipalities involved here, Caledon, Vaughan, Brampton. How do the residents feel? As Amanda said, if I came to this spot 7 years ago, I didn't see any of this. And now, it looks like a scene sometimes out of Death Race 2000. How do people feel about this proliferation of illicit trucking and storage facilities?
Oh, they're furious. When we first started, I was upset very much upset when my friend's daughter passed away. And I put up a post out in our community Facebook, and it went crazy. Everybody was fed up. Everybody had had enough. A lot of people have moved out of the area because they can't control it anymore, and so what can I say? Everybody is upset. I hope that you get to interview some residents and you will get an earful from everyone. We're scared. We are literally scared to drive every time we leave the house.
Yeah.
That is shocking, but believable. And this is serious. Look at the size of these trucks. The idea that some are ill-maintained and driven by someone who's ill-qualified, that's baffling. And that brings me to, it looks like the municipalities can't or won't do anything. But what about the province and what about the federal government?
So the municipalities some are doing what they can. Unfortunately for us as residents, it's never fast enough. So municipalities are trying to change bylaws and things to make it easier to enforce on these illegal yards. The province, we've been advocating for 2 years, and essentially we're getting nowhere. And just recently, before they broke for their summer holiday of 5 months, they are now saying that they're going to give the municipalities the power to enforce these illegal yards through the AMPS program, which is essentially through the municipal ticketing system. They can enforce some of these laws. Well, that helps a little bit. There are so many more things that need to be done, especially when you're talking about the training of truck drivers, the licensing of truck drivers, and the fraud that's happening. The province needs to step up, and they're not doing enough.
What's going on behind the scenes? Is this a matter of politics? Is this a matter of provincial and federal politicians not wanting to look like they're going after a certain demographic that might hurt them at the ballot box in future elections?
It definitely is. That's what we see. We see them supporting them when our own Ontario Trucking Association, Canadian Trucking Association, can't get a meeting with them. And they're attending CTOA's events many times. They support independent drivers. Okay. So the independent drivers are basically, they come here, they go to a carrier, the carrier says, please incorporate yourself so you're your own business. So there's no more liability on the carrier. There's no more insurance and all that stuff. And basically, if anything happens, the carrier is not responsible. And they support that. They want everybody as independent drivers. And they haven't been paying taxes since about 2012, 2014.
Haven't been paying. Usually that gets the attention of the CRA. How do you get away with not paying taxes?
Well, there was a moratorium on that particular law for the trucking industry for whatever period of time. That was recently lifted. So now they are required to report and pay taxes. Exactly how that's going, I don't know. It's only fairly recent that came back into effect. So that hopefully will level the playing field. But it still doesn't address the major issues that we're seeing with training, improper maintenance of trucks, and just essentially the dangerous conditions on our roads. Like, our public safety is not there.
And another aspect of this is, let's say a independent driver causes an accident, kills somebody, or has a really bad safety rating. All they have to do is switch province and start all over. So the federal government is trying to implement, hopefully, a intra-provincial database. Because right now, the person that killed my friend's daughter, for all we know, he could be in Alberta in a truck and just moving on with his life.
That is staggering to me. And by the way, as Amanda said, the danger element. Franca, who are the people operating these yards, operating the trucks themselves? I understand there's some pretty bad hombres. I mean, you said off camera, when we go making house calls, you don't want to be on camera because they're not really all that nice a bunch of guys. Can you tell us about who is operating this racket?
So we don't know exactly who's operating. All we know is there's Project Pelican, there's Project Odyssey, there's Project Sledgehammer by Peel. You know, they're all over the place, and there's a lot of shady stuff happening. We've heard of people sleeping in the containers. We've heard of drug busts, human trafficking, and all sorts of stuff.
This one right here in front of you with all those containers is zoned to be 2 containers high. Tell me where you see 2 containers. Okay, I see maybe like 1 or 2 stacks.
But again,
No consequence. No consequence.
And the yard that we just passed that got into compliance and rezoned, they've altered a waterway,
Yes.
and they were not asked to fix it, were they? No.
This
Wait,
yard on the left, all illegal.
Watch.
Watch this guy.
Be careful.
wow.
Be careful.
And we're gonna keep going straight. So this is the kind of things that people have to deal with on a regular basis through here.
wow.
And this guy coming down here is coming from an illegal yard. So all of these yards here, just south of Nashville Road, are illegal. They basically paved over and started storing trucks before they have proper zoning. They're now trying to zone into compliance. So all of these are illegal.
I should point out that we reached out to the Ontario Trucking Association. The OTA is well aware of this festering problem. Recently, the OTA's Marco Bigetto, who is VP of Communications and New Media, wrote a scathing editorial regarding this disturbing and unsafe situation. Notes Bigetto, quote, "The Ontario Trucking Association has been following the chaotic situation in Caledon, specifically along the border with Vaughan, for many years. I want to be clear. The industry stands with the community in demanding that commercial activity remain within the bounds of provincial and municipal law, and more importantly, the growing number of unscrupulous carriers who put untrained, unprepared, and careless drivers on the road with our residents must be stopped. We must distinguish between professional carriers and rogue operators. A truck in your community making a delivery is a sign of a healthy economy, but a fleet using a ghost yard, a site illegally carved out of vacant agricultural land, or literally in the backyards of residential subdivisions, is a violation of the law. The OTA has been working closely with some local mayors to address these issues, yet the problem is expanding because rogue operators are bypassing the rules that law-abiding trucking companies follow. Meanwhile, politicians and enforcement agencies at every level point fingers and debate responsibilities over jurisdiction and enforcement authority. Meanwhile, as time passes without any progress, the problem worsens, end quote. So really, what's going on here when it comes to enforcing the rules? Indeed, how is it that the federal Liberals invoked the Emergencies Act in 2022 to violently take down a peaceful protest in Ottawa, yet they ignore the Wild West of trucking elsewhere? After all, the Freedom Convoy was comprised mostly of law-abiding truckers who weren't causing any harm to any person. Yet the feds now turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to illegal trucking that is leading to unsafe situations. And it's the same deal with the province of Ontario and the various municipalities. They don't seem to care either. And they literally have blood on their hands. I go back to the reason why the Caledon Community Road Safety Advocacy Group came into existence in the first place. It was due to the tragic case of Adriana Milena McCauley. This 23-year-old woman died in a four-vehicle collision on September 10th, 2024 on Coleraine Drive at King Street West. Rajinder Singh, a Punjabi asylum seeker, was behind the wheel of a transport truck that soared through a red light that had been illuminated for a full 10 seconds, Macaulay never stood a chance. By the way, earlier this year, Singh was shockingly handed a mere 55-day jail sentence and a $1,000 fine. He's already been released. You see, he allegedly suffers from psychological damage. When, oh when, is this nation going to make deportation great again? In the final analysis, is this irresponsible approach all about identity politics? After all, the vast majority of those involved in the illegal trucking racket are from India. So is this really all about the powers that be not wanting to be painted as culturally insensitive? Or perhaps this is all about our so-called leaders not wanting to upset a growing voting bloc? And seriously, if this isn't the case, then why does this outrageous and gross dereliction of duty continue?